Thanks for joining us. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our tech webinar series. I'm Tracy Gardner, the Global Marketing Director here at VLink, and we're so glad you're all here. Today, our 30-minute webinar, we're going to look ahead to 2026, and we're going to ask a key question. From financial services to healthcare, insurance, retail, manufacturing, those highly regulated industries, how are companies gaining a real competitive edge through real-time data, AI-driven insights, and smarter compliance strategies? Organizations are experiencing a perfect storm right now, a shift from batch to real-time data, the rapid integration of AI and automation, and rising global compliance and governance pressure. So how do leaders innovate responsibly without slowing down? That's what today is all about. And we brought together an excellent panel. I'm so excited. Here joining us today is JC Spierer. He is a seasoned former financial strategist who has worked inside major institutions like HSBC and McKinsey. JC has deep expertise in financial markets and data strategy. He is currently the Alpha PMO company's chairman, partner, private investor, a serial entrepreneur through Harvard and MIT, and formerly with Bank of America and the PE Group leadership. So glad to have Waseem Samaan, a CPA and CIA, who brings incredible insight into risk management and compliance transformation across industries, and Brian Haverty, VLink's VP of Sales for our capital markets and financial services lines of business, who partners with enterprises to deploy real-time data and AI solutions. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for being here. And just to the audience out there, be ready with your questions. Feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get to those live. We'll also do a live poll. But first, we're going to start with you, JC. Let's ask you've led data strategy and transformation in highly regulated enterprises. As organizations look toward 2026, just about a few weeks away, what major shifts do you see happening in data infrastructure, AI adoption, and modernization?
So there's a lot of different areas. So I think we'll focus on a couple. One term that you could look at is accountable acceleration. So things are happening faster, right, across all the areas you mentioned, whether it's data being set up faster on a virtualization or the actual data itself being trained and worked on and decided. So that's one key area that I think is critical, and that accountable piece is there as well on both the individual and direct level of what's happening with the people doing it, and then also on the macro level, there's traces. The other half of it is also being able to look at the productization. If you look across the hiring and what's happening now, it used to be you'd rarely have product people. You had a few product people that kind of oversaw what was happening, and everyone else's projects, everyone else was doing the work and operationalization. Now you have a lot of product people being hired. It's a different job now, and there's more productization that's needed and being done there too, and that allows it to be a nice unit. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Waseem, I want to, and we've thrown a slide up there. Anything you want to say from this slide, JC? Anything at all from the
Yeah.
slide that's up
Yeah, let
there?
me just very briefly say two things about it. And we could talk for hours on this, but
We
but
could,
the, but
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 we
we
only have
won't,
30 minutes.
right? But we won't.
Right.
The real important part of it to take away is really two things. One is people think that there's two types of AI, and that's agentic, right, and generative. There's actually more. There's conversational, which seems like it would be chatbots, but it's actually what's going to allow them to be more humanized and more to take over what's being done, say, in real estate and other areas over time. And then also
Mhm.
some specifics at the bottom of what's being done in regulated areas, and that it's in some sense AI has been around a long time, and that ties in with what's been done for the automation piece, because it had to be at scale. Say for J.P. Morgan, for example, or Fidelity, some of the larger companies in that sense, some of the ones that you represent. And it seems like those benefited for a long time. But now we got to get into across all those different areas, not just the main
Yeah,
two. And I think that's the
yeah,
important message
for sure.
here. You could talk a lot about
Okay,
what it solves, but you can see that later.
sure. Oh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And Waseem,
Absolutely.
regulations and governance, JC kind of alluded to it, standards, they're evolving very quickly. How do you think leaders should think about compliance as part of modernization, but not a roadblock to it?
Leaders should stop viewing compliance as something that slows innovation. Instead, they should see it as a framework that enables innovation to scale safely. Regulations
Hmm.
today are moving quickly because technology is moving quickly. And if your business model is modernizing, whether through AI, cloud transformation, new revenue models, the governance structure has to modernize with it, right?
Hmm.
So you have to build in, it's funny, you have all these major tech companies, and I sit on multiple CAE and chief risk officer roundtables, and they're very big tech companies, yet they're still using manual processes, manual controls. No, you need to use real-time controls and automations, not manual checklists. You need to design processes that are secure, that have proper privacy and transparency.
Yeah.
You need to treat governance as a competitive differentiator rather than an obligation. And aligning your compliance with your strategic objectives is very key. We see this in the
Yeah.
Institute of Internal Auditors. They've revamped everything that everyone knows about internal audit. They want audit to be 50% advisory. They want you to be proactive. They want you to be part of system implementation. So they really need to see these things as how do I get my stuff to be better? And how do I embrace AI and do it in an ethical way that helps me scale fast and scale safely and efficiently? Because if you have an incident, and you're throwing all this money at AI and you have there goes your company's reputation. And that's very hard to recover.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Good point. I mean, guardrails are so important. We've been talking about that for years, but they're needing to be put up faster and faster. Brian,
Yeah.
across industries. Oh,
I
go
was
ahead,
gonna,
Waseem. I didn't mean to.
sorry, if I can add to that, Tracy, I think compliance needs to be part of, the product design. It needs to be part of the efficiency of the operation, resilience. It needs to be part of every part of the business, and they should have a seat at all those various councils, whether it's your risk function, your audit function, your SOC function. Because if you build it correctly, controls are embedded from the beginning. That's how you can scale and not have to continuously do rework and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Tracy, you had said we'd be
Good
able to
point.
add in quick things if something came up to
Yeah, go
mind.
ahead,
Great.
JC. Sure.
I like what Wasim just said. I think it's really very much in line. It kind of reminds me of what we did several years back when we realized the regulators. We work out of DC a lot too. Realized how much power the regulators had over crypto and over other areas like AI and
Yeah.
infrastructure. Right? They can say yes or no. So the concept was to go from karate, where you fight in some sense with them and parry and thrust, to judo, where you actually grapple together and find ways together to be able to solve. So we had a term called that informally was called regulatory judo. So
I love it. Right,
uh,
we need to institute that for sure. Good point, JC. I wanted to bring Brian in real quick. Brian, you work across industries, especially in the financial industry, since that's kind of where you're mostly speaking to clients. What are you hearing from those CIOs and CTOs right now about the pace of AI adoption, the challenges they're trying to solve, even before 2026?
Yeah, well, so at VLink, we see the biggest opportunity and challenges in helping financial and investment institutions move from being data rich to truly insight ready. And it's happening by unifying fragmented data, improving trust and quality, and then finally automating the manual processes uh, that make decision making, that slow down the decision making process. So, with that,
Mhm.
most firms have the data they need, but it's trapped in legacy systems,
Yeah.
inconsistent formats, and siloed operations. The real unlock comes from modernizing the data foundation, integrating platforms like Aladdin and eFront into cohesive
Mhm.
architecture, applying AI to elevate data quality, governance, and enabling seamless integrations across the front, middle, and back office. The results are
Excellent.
simple: predictive insights, faster reporting, and smarter risk and investment decisions that become achievable at scale.
Yeah, good point, Brian. Okay, all good points. And JC, there's a lot of talk about real-time data, as Brian said, but few institutions truly leverage it for real-time decision making. How would you say leading firms are using AI and data automation to enhance risk assessment, trading strategies, even compliance?
sure. They're starting to do it well, actually, for some of the firms. I think the ones that are really focused on sort of scale and also focusing on certain areas and not taking on everything as a kind of panacea for all of it. So one area that's talked about is, say, a real-time risk. instead of some of the overnight batches for even the largest areas, you kind of have a continual work on that data. So it's kind of a pipe, not just in a CI, CD kind of pipe, but in a real pipe of data in that sense. A second area is looking at trading as a co-pilot, right? For strategy, not an autopilot. You don't just turn everything over. So it's tempting. Once you get good at it, we're going to let it work, right? And instead, what you can do is kind of co-pilot together and be able to work on that. I think those are two top areas that I think companies are doing well are able to understand that balance between letting it ride and also the strong, deep connection between those
Yeah,
areas.
don't take that human element out of it, not yet anyway.
No.
Brian, can you share a practical example from VLink's work, maybe where real-time analytics made a measurable impact on efficiency or competitive advantage?
Yeah, so let's explore one of VLink's use cases at BlackRock. The problem was that BlackRock struggled with delayed visibility into trade confirmation, cash positions, and exposure across multiple asset classes. VLink's solution was implementing a real-time analytics layer on top of the existing order management system, executive management system, and custodial feeds using streaming architecture with automated data quality checks and ML-driven anomaly detection. So
Mhm.
VLink's results included reduced reconciliation cycles from 4 hours to less than 10 minutes. And this was all while enabling intraday exception handling instead of next day firefighting. So we cut operational incidents by 30%, and that was through real-time alerts that flagged mismatched trades and unusual cash movements. We improved the portfolio manager's decision-making speed by 25 to 30% because exposure and liquidity dashboards were always current and giving BlackRock measurable edge during volatile market windows. And lastly, VLink was able to free up 20% of the analyst capacity, and that was previously tied to manual data prep. So VLink's
Yeah.
data rich to insight-ready enablement consistently reduces latency by increasing trust in data and giving business
Mhm.
leaders the ability to act in minutes and not hours.
And that's important. The time piece is really important, Brian. And then Waseem, I want to bring you in because from a compliance, I want to talk about compliance again. And AI can both help and complicate things, right? I mean, we've established that. How do you see regulators adapting to AI-driven financial decisions, and how can institutions stay ahead of these changes? I know that's a couple questions I'm throwing at you.
Yeah, and look, I want to start off with a statistic. So look, there's a benefit of implementing AI, and obviously there are risks with implementing AI, and you have
Yeah.
to embrace both. The first thing is, we are in this new bubble of AI, and if you're not embracing AI, you're going to become the new blockbuster.
Yeah.
And where Netflix embraced digital and the dot-com era and like really took off, you can all see the Netflix stock versus Blockbuster that went through bankruptcy. Two, another fun stat is the bad guys are using AI. So if you don't use AI to combat AI, you're going to lose because AI doesn't sleep, right? So
Yeah.
one fun fact is over 50% of internet traffic, I believe it's 51%, is bot activity. It's not human activity. And we had it with this
Yeah.
webinar where half of the people who
We
signed
did.
up are bots.
Yep.
And from that, 37% of all internet activity is bad bots. Bots trying to
Yeah.
steal information, bots trying to get a gift card from an event, but just doing
Yep.
all kinds of stuff. So I want to have people realize that from a risk perspective of not embracing AI. Now with
Yeah.
doing AI, what you really need, and this is where he just touched on it, Brian, from your product, what the SEC is looking for, what OCC is looking for, what the EU AI and other acts are looking for is transparency,
Yeah.
accountability, data integrity, and continuous monitoring, right? Those are key. And even before AI, as an auditor, those are things that we always had to test. How did we know the data is complete? How did we know it's timely? So
Hmm.
at the core of implementing technology or with or without regulation, it kind of always comes to not common sense, but make sure you don't have to wait until the regulators tell you what to do like they did in SOX. Like internal audit existed way before that. And this is the same thing. Just make sure you have a built-in AI governance framework.
Yeah.
You model risk management as a strategic discipline. You obviously anything that's high impacting decision, you still have the human element oversight. Even as a staff level and as auditors, when we come in, we're like, okay, your staff or this person did this we always expect someone to be reviewing it. So you still need a human reviewing it. And then you need to make sure you have comprehensive audit trails and then cross-functional governance councils. And with that, you can combat any of the new regulations and stuff coming out. And like you guys mentioned, like AI in the financial side of things is, being used to credit underwriting, it's used to do fraud detection, it's used to do trading. And so at the end of the day, as long as you guys have the proper controls and frameworks, and again, cybersecurity is a risk that increases, privacy is a risk that you need to make sure you address. So you need completeness, accuracy. You need to integrate and automate your systems so that information is being pooled and pooled timely, and making sure that the right data and you have proper data governance so you understand what data is allowed to be used and what data is not, because especially EU regulation has really strict restrictions on certain types of data of not being even allowed to be pulled into AI.
Good point. Hey guys, we have a question. Taryn just put it in the chat for me, and any of you can answer this. So, how can companies manage shadow AI, use of internal employees, unauthorized AI tools, and enforce access controls to prevent sensitive data from moving into non-approved environments? Feel
So,
free, JC, Brian, Waseem, to take
so
it.
am I
Yeah,
right?
you go first.
Oh, who? You
Yeah,
want to
go
I
go
ahead,
said
first?
Waseem.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was thinking
Oh,
you two, but
okay.
go first.
But I'm not going to endorse any company, so I'll keep the brands of companies out there. But in my prior
Yeah,
company, we
yeah.
actually addressed both of those. There are products that basically scan what your employees are doing, and if they upload anything that's confidential, it will go in and delete it and block it. And then there are
Wow.
products that monitor what your employees and products they're using on their computer. But at the end of the day, if your employee wants to do it, they'll find a way to do it. And that's where, as a risk officer, I've
Yeah.
seen companies block certain things, but instead of blocking it and banning it and just being a police officer, how about you embrace it and bring it in properly and secure it properly? So instead of letting them use an open AI on the website, a lot of companies are building closed AI models inside, and it's actually working better because not only is it feeding from a GBT, but then you can feed in your company's information in it so that the output is customizable. Again, in my prior companies, we pulled in GBT, but also pulled in all the company policies and stuff. So if I want to know what is my allowance for whatever, I can type that. Or if I need to know who in finance to talk to, I can ask chat, our internal GBT to help me do that.
Yeah.
So I would say embrace it, because no matter how much parameters you put, you can always find a way. And one simple thing I'll tell you is you have Slack. Most companies have Slack or some kind of form of communication. If you don't let me
Yeah.
use it on my
Teams.
computer and you block ChatGPT, I'm just going to go use it on my personal, upload it to Slack, and then copy and paste it. So there's
It's
always a way around
exactly
it.
right. It's
So.
exactly right. JC, anything to add
Yeah.
there? Then we're going to do a live
Yeah.
poll. Go
I
ahead.
think that's an interesting thought. I think it goes on three levels on a very practical basis, right? I know some of the smartest individuals who tend to cross companies a lot. They own the stuff that they use and they want to own it, and they also want to use it inside the company when they're allowed to. So they have those two paths, right?
Yeah.
And there's no way for a company to control what's outside. What's inside they do, and they then get resentment from employees if they don't let them use it enough. So they have a balancing act, right? I can't, just like you, I can't always name the companies, but I can say some of the very largest Fortune 50s as well as smaller. The second piece to that is looking at what happens when the companies are trying to help the employees to both learn as well as use it inside the companies. PII is key, and that didn't start with
Mhm.
this. When search engines were being done internally and crawling, the PII came crawling out, so to speak, anyway, and people would have things published out of HR or other areas. It's not just a question of what they type, it's a question of what it brings as well. So that's the second. And then the last piece to it is looking at the company itself and both its liabilities and opportunities. They have to do something now because of both the perceptions as well as I I was skeptical at first, but I have seen things go from 6 months to, 2 weeks at times. It's not always a good
Yeah,
job, but it's good enough. So at the end of the day, when that kind of leverage is available, you can't really stop the kind of leaders from moving forward with that. But in controlling it,
yeah,
there's
true.
not just the tools to do it, but there's also the ability for the people who are, have a bit of self-control. They have to realize the consequences. So it's a combination of those
Yeah.
three areas.
Absolutely. Well, and time is flying, guys. We only have like 8, 9 minutes left, but I wanted to get a poll in here real quick, just to kind of get the pulse of the audience. So it's a live poll. You can vote. The question Taryn has put up on the screen: what would be the biggest driver of competitive advantage in your organization by 2026? Just make a single choice. Is it real-time access to high quality data? Is it AI and automation? Is it stronger compliance and governance readiness, or is it ability to innovate faster than competitors? And we unfortunately can't vote, but we'll look at the results here in a second. We can put those up. We should have them here. So, what would you guys suspect is going to be the top answer? I would have voted AI and automation as the second one, but I kind of want you guys to weigh in on that. Taryn, do we have the results yet of the vote?
I
Um, there it is. There it is. It's on the screen, guys. Can you see it? What will be the biggest driver of competitive advantage? It's AI and automation, which is what I would have thought that it was. The biggest driver of competitive advantage, AI and automation. Does
well
any
for
of
the
you
nine
can?
that
I'd
put
love to
stronger
hear.
governance, sorry, for the nine that put stronger governance and compliance readiness, I love you guys. That's obviously my function. So
Yes, of
Uh,
course,
I
of
actually think
course.
it's very important because if you have an incident, you're screwed. But I think you still have to be competitive, and so if you have no product or nothing to sell, so I would actually say, from my point of view, AI. I struggle because AI and AI automation is very important. But honestly,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it gives you the if you have garbage in, garbage out, so data is very important, and data is what drives decision making. So they're all four very important, but if I have to
Yeah,
be very like particular, I would say, well, AI and AI automation only as works as your data. So if you don't have proper data quality and data integrity, so I guess I would
they
go with
all
data.
they all they
Yeah, and
all
I
go
guess from
together.
my
Yeah,
side, you know, let's see, I've worked on both sides of it, right? On both the sort of growth
yeah,
and AI and all that, and also on the compliance. I think it's spiky on the compliance because when it goes awry, let's even say I was going to mention earlier KYC for even the companies you mentioned for the case, right? You can get almost real-time KYC in a way you couldn't. That helps deal with the compliance piece driven by
true.
AI, but not entirely. I think when they talk about the automation piece, it's not technically data driven primarily, especially agentic AI. You're looking toward not only bring the workflows forward, but also the capabilities forward as well. As long as there's a human in the loop to oversee it, then you can get a lot out of it and you get the best of both. So I think,
Yeah, Brian,
and
anything
then
surprise
and
you,
then the
Brian?
last one is the last one I think about the ability to innovate. I mean, the question is faster. If the word faster was taken out, I think that one would have to be first in some levels because everyone's got
Better,
it.
maybe better. Anything
Yeah.
surprise you, Brian, on the poll?
Uh, no, I love AI and automation.
Yeah.
However, I will concur with Waseem, and that is, I'm a big proponent of having total data quality management as your foundation with whatever you're doing.
Hmm.
The data is going to dictate your results, period.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, JC, innovators want speed, and people like Waseem and
Mhm.
compliance teams want risk reduction. In your experience, how can organizations strike that right balance between real-time innovation and that responsible governance?
Sure. I think there's needs to be a balance, obviously, between them. You can use guardrails as a basis for it, as a foundational piece. The second level to that I've seen used in a number of large and smaller companies that have the resources for it is you have a kind of a two speed. You use the guardrails as a primary to kind of take on the faster velocity and sort of higher impact items. And then you also have the same guardrails, but an additional set for some other items that are either more experimental, let's say, or more focused and maybe don't have the same risk levels. I mean, the idea of risk, it's changed some in terms of speed, but the idea of how risk works under that is still, is still the same. And under the velocity pieces, I mean, in this case, for example, when you look at what we're really able to get now, right? And we're talking about the risk, and I know that is very important, but also, what's the take, as you'd say, and a lot of it is really you have to look at the value that it's creating. One of the things that's key in a lot of this is, is the trust piece, and I think that really underlies all of this. We could have an entire
Mm-hmm.
seminar about nothing but trust now. Trust with an
Absolutely.
S for financial, but also trust across the board for what's happening. So you can have these
Excellent.
these various AI pieces. You can have even at the bottom part of what's there. You can look at things like fraud and in real time for it. And then you can also be able to bring in these other areas. Agentic AI is going to be really transformational, much more in many ways than people think about what it can do, what it can replace in terms of velocity. But having the oversight for it is key. And then that
Sure.
part about the speed, it kind of takes care of itself. You want to go as fast as you can, but it's not just limited by data, it's also limited by infrastructure. I think in a lot of ways, you want to grab the infrastructure now because it's only going to get faster and bigger if you can have a chance
Yeah.
to get more for cheaper now. And then the last piece to it, in terms of balancing it, is having a scorecard on it too, balancing risk and reward. One of the companies that
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with, we used to have sort of value offices that would oversee risk and reward. And I think that that,
Mm-hmm.
that, that that is only more important now.
Smart. Yeah,
I'll add
absolutely.
to
And
that,
yeah,
if
go
you don't
ahead,
mind.
Waseem. Go
So
ahead.
trust, I just heard this in one of the conferences, is like the most important currency, and it's true. Like trust is the foundation. If you don't, employees don't
Yes.
trust you, they're not gonna, do a good job. You won't have customers if you don't have customer trust. Your business partners, your vendors, if there's no trust. And trust right now with a fragment, trusting AI, trusting the systems will produce what there was. So trust is very important. And that's where I can wrap up this program and say, bring in your risk and compliance function to the products. And I'll use this example to echo what JC. In my prior company, we had two committees. One was called the AI Innovation Committee, and these are the mad scientists that tested new AI products as they came out, especially in an era where AI was so new, a lot of it didn't have SOC reports and stuff like that. And we had legal on that council, and you had myself, and you had all the key players that would IT and stuff that would say, hey, let's think about this, let's test it out, let's think all the various disciplines of risk functions in the company to give in their input. We even had HR person so that we had the human element and stuff like that. And then we had another committee, which was the AI governance committee. It's AI and privacy governance committee. So one
Yeah.
was the gas and the other one was the brakes. And I was
Yeah.
on both. And when you embed both functions and cross-functionally work together, we were able to buy stuff so quickly and implement stuff so quickly and do it so ethically. And
Oh,
I'm proud to
wow.
say the company has never had an incident because of that.
That's
We didn't buy
knock on
anything
wood, Waseem.
crazy.
Knock on
Well,
wood.
Yeah,
one of the things, if I might, Waseem, that comes up now is vendor management. I was part of running a
Mhm.
practice for a prominent firm on at a time for vendor management and third
yeah.
party vendor risk, but also vendor advantages now increasingly matter. So it becomes a vendor trust question, but you can do real time vendor trust analysis now because you can actually analyze trust on 13 quantitative and 7 qualitative ways. Believe it or not, there are,
So
there are ways to do that. So
Yeah.
that council would approve every single vendor that had the word AI, and we embedded it as our third-party risk management function. Not only do we have a questionnaire for cyber, a questionnaire for privacy, but then we added an AI questionnaire as well, because there's a lot of products. And then we did an analysis because a lot of pre-existing vendors you have are, turning on AI within their systems. Workiva, Oracle, whatever, all of them pretty much, right? To be competitive, they're all embracing AI. So we did a review and analysis of that as well. But if you embed, like that's why I said, if you embed these controls as part of your day-to-day operations, that's how you become super, super successful and embrace, automate, and integrate. So that way you eliminate the risk of, you know, privacy risk and confidential information leaking. You want all your systems to be integrated, automated. You have completeness, accuracy, and timeliness of information while increasing your compliance and reducing risk.
So
Good
there's a
point.
reason
And
why American Express hangs their hat on two words, trust and security. And Tracy, I
yeah.
know you need to move this along.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. It's we do have one last question. It's okay. We're a few minutes over, which is fine because we so if those of you who want to stay for a few minutes, we're going to continue to have a little bit of a conversation because we want to get to a last question here that was asked. And the question is, data quality issues are cited as the primary reason nearly half of AI initiatives are abandoned. Are you bridging the gap between legacy architectures and AI-ready data to ensure your 2026 roadmap doesn't become part of that failure statistic? It says
So
yeah. So go ahead,
I,
Waseem.
I don't know who you want to take this, but I will add to that. One of the biggest companies I know, like all the big companies, like I said, I interact with, that was the main thing. I said, before you embrace AI, you need to make sure you have proper data governance, right? You
Mm-hmm,
have to
mm-hmm.
have that. And some of the smartest companies, GE was one of them, they said they embedded some AI, but before they full blown rely on AI internally, they needed to make sure the first thing they concentrated on was integrating their systems, automating their systems, having the proper flagging of certain data, who can see it, who cannot see it. And that was the foundation of like having that proper cybersecurity, privacy, automation, integration was the basic foundation of then when you can get the real value of generative AI, your bots pulling information, because at the end of the day, it's just the technology and garbage in
Yeah,
equals garbage out.
it does.
Mm.
And go ahead, JC, because we do have another question too. Do you want to add to that?
Oh,
And then I'll get to the next question.
yeah, sure. So I was gonna appreciate what Brian and your group's been able to do for BlackRock and other companies like that. I'm sure scale used to matter in that sense. When I used to go in years ago, you have to go division by division. You couldn't have IT sort of go crossways to have that kind of velocity of impact, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you can do that now. I agree that the data matters, but also you have to do it iteratively and find the right spots to make sure that it matters. It can't be perfect everywhere. So that's all I'd say.
Yeah, true. And we'll make this the last question, then we'll let everybody get back to their day. How are you balancing the urgency to modernize by 2026 with the risk of creating compliance debt and, in quotes, building systems now that may not meet the stricter transparency and governance requirements regulators will likely impose in the near future?
I
Who are
can
you
take
asking
that.
to?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, JC.
Okay.
Waseem, go ahead.
Uh,
So no, go ahead.
I was laughing because Tracy, I think, had that question originally for me. We just didn't get time to it. But go ahead, JC.
All good.
I was just going to say, look, don't wait till the final rule book. Establish clear
Yeah,
ownership across legal, risk, audit, engineering, document where AI is being used,
yeah,
classify models by risk, ensure high risk impact use cases like financial decision making are explainable, human oversight, continuous monitoring. If you build these guardrails, honestly, you're going to win.
yeah.
And then you can adapt to any regulations, which God knows regulations in the US and across the world just keep shifting left and right, up and down, and in everything, not just AI.
Hard to
Privacy,
keep up with.
cyber, audit, stocks, everything is just like up in the air right now. So if you do that, though, that's the foundation of AI at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You can scale up and down as needed. So
JC, go ahead.
So can you repeat the question again? I got a
Yeah,
little
let
bit
me get it
lost.
here. Let
Can
me
you?
see. How are you balancing the urgency to modernize by 2026 with the
Uh,
risk of creating compliance debt, which is building systems they may not meet that stricter transparency
okay.
and government governance now that you will likely
Well, I mean,
impose
the
on the near
first
future?
question is the progressive side of timing. by 2026 is an interesting thing because we're effectively here now. If you haven't
Yeah.
hired the people that you need, they're not going to be up to speed and know what to do because the training has to
Yeah.
happen. And the training takes the longest. Everyone talked about data and issues.
Mhm.
Honestly, you can get lots of data and you can buy it, but you can't really train it well. I've seen people train it exceptionally well, but they're rare. They're a rare breed, right? The reason that
Mhm.
I know a little bit about AI from it now that ties with this is because of intelligent systems as a sort of macro of what AI involves for all the stuff. And it doesn't matter if it's regulatory or growth. Either way, you need ways to have intelligent data work, infrastructure, not mess it up. And lastly, I think increasingly you can keep up with the regulations. If you wanted to make a case of more regulations, that's a whole other question. Politics are out here. But I would say as far as what exists, it hasn't really changed a whole lot except for in chunks, right? Like around '08, for example, when they had some major banking changes. This is an example. So you were able to keep up, but the point is you were behind a lot of the time. Now they can change it in a day in a lot of cases, and companies are
Yeah.
required to keep up. Increasingly, even the CISOs, right? I've played that role at times. The CISO role is becoming a role that is reporting like CFO and is accountable like that. That means sometimes if you don't report in days, you're in trouble and you can be in trouble for your company and yourself legally. So I think all those things are falling on AI, but I think we need to also realize that AI is quote unquote only human in that sense too.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, I think I think we just have to be realistic. But I think it's great. I think it's doing some really good things, and KYC is one of the biggest areas I think of improvement.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
There's
JC, Waseem, Brian. You guys have just been fantastic. It's clear that the next competitive edge in the regulated industry isn't just about faster systems or bigger data. It's really about our smarter data. Um, so just thank you all. And to those here in attendance, a quick note: to ensure great experience, gift cards will only be sent to registered attendees with a verified professional profile, like on LinkedIn. Spam or unauthorized registrants will not be eligible. So we appreciate everybody understanding that. Any last thoughts, guys, before we
Well,
go?
there's that one last
Anybody?
slide. I just wanted to very briefly be able to mention it. As part of my best financer I ever had for one of my companies, you learn the whole 1 minute technique. So I'll limit it. I've used up 10 seconds now. So don't chase efficiency, but go after market share. Something that we help to do. I won't say which company because it was prominent and disruptive at times. You learn how to have a very a very agile set of products and services you offer and ways to be able to regulate and oversee those as well. So we've helped companies larger and smaller do that. Also, be able to increase their revenues quickly as a result of that by sort of marginal changes. And lastly, be able to have those plans in place for even in 30 days you get something done. It's possible to do that, and it's not just AI, although it
Good.
certainly
Okay.
helps that AI is a big part of it.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. And if you're looking for guidance on your 2026 data, AI, maybe modernization roadmap, I know Brian will be taking private advisory meetings immediately after the event or anytime in the future on behalf of VLink, which is also who I represent. You may resolve a slot in any of the ways. You can drop your name in the Zoom chat during the webinar or during right now, or you can email Brian. And JC and Waseem's contact information is also on the screen if you'd like to speak with them as well. You can get in touch with them as well. And we just want to thank everyone who joined us today. And Waseem, JC, and Brian, it's been a pleasure. You guys were great. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
doing this tech webinar series with us. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Tracy.
Thank you for having us.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome.
Thanks,
Everyone
Tracy.
Bye-bye,
call Ryan.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.